Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Crystal Narr with the Chillicothe Area Chamber. And during these uncertain times with the COVID-19 virus, we are making sure that we're doing our part to provide you with plenty of information as it relates to community issues or business issues. And today's a big one. So we have asked Mr. Jeremy Clevenger of Clevenger Associates right here in Chillicothe to be a part of this discussion as we talk about the financial resources that are becoming available for you, our community businesses. So thank you, Jeremy, for joining me.
Thank you, Crystal.
So Jeremy has done his research as a CPA and making sure that he's staying up to date for all of his current clients when it comes to the different resources that are becoming available. And we both agree that things are changing every single day, and we're all doing the best to stay on top of that as new things come available. But as it sits right now, there are several things that are already being issued, and our local banks are starting to pick up on that as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. But to start, we're just going to jump right in. So have your notepad and pen ready to take down some notes, and know at the end we will provide you with some links that will assist you even further in your research to figure out which of these options will work best for your business. So Jeremy, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So the CARES Act was passed last week, and there were several bills that Congress and the President passed, which has created a lot of confusion because there's three major bills. And the first bill, the phase one bill, had to do with research and development, trying to get ahead of the virus, trying to get solutions to the virus through medical things. And so that doesn't apply to the public at large very much. Phase two was another package that included some support. But the big thing that we want to talk about is the phase three bill, the CARES Act. And that was the $2 trillion package that the president signed. And that's what most of the news media is covering right now. So in that bill, that's where the automatic payments to the taxpayers come from. That's $1,200 per individual. If you make less than $75,000, you will get a check or a direct deposit based on how I believe it's the 2018 return. Was what I saw the last time I checked on that. It's possible they will look at the 2019 return, but I believe the bill was originally thought to go off the 2018 return.
Okay.
Also, in the past, and I haven't read this anywhere, but when this kind of stimulus was done before, there was a reconciliation that happened on your current year tax return when Bush did these tax checks several years ago.
Okay.
There was a reconciliation that happened. So if your income was higher or lower than it was on the preceding year, there was a reconciliation. So that's something to think about if you're right on the line, that you may have to pay some of that back if you make too much money in 2020, which we all hope for. But
right.
For most people, 2020 is going to be a struggle. Which is why they passed such tremendous legislation here.
And that's what I had jotted down, that it was $1,200 per individual for individual filing, correct? But if it was a joint filing, then it was $24. If you made under $150,000, that was the cap that I saw if you filed jointly. Is that what you heard as well? And then per child is $500.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a phase out on that. So as your income increases, for a married couple, the phase out is $198,000. At that point, you get zero. And for a single filer, it's $99,000.
Okay. But the one thing I saw that was kind of good to know is that people don't have to be out there searching how to apply for that. That is like an automatic. It will just happen.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, you'll either get a check in the mail or direct deposit, and I don't know how they will run the disbursements, if it'll be by last name, if it'll be by social security number.
Right.
But there's an order, and we'll know, I imagine, when the first checks or direct deposits are made, because we'll hear it. You might not get yours the same week that your neighbor gets theirs, but it'll be a process to get 100 million checks out or direct deposits.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Good information on that.
So expanded unemployment is one part of this bill, which is new. So the unemployment amount has been backstopped by the Fed to the tune of $600 a week. And they've also expanded that self-employed individuals who haven't previously paid into the unemployment system without employees also qualify for unemployment. And so I've actually had some clients that have gone through the system and set up accounts. And I can tell you right now, Missouri does not have the specific questions I think that they need to have to ask the right questions to the self-employed people. So you might give that system another week before you apply. But if you really have no income coming in, that's a good resource, or should be a good resource, when the state catches up with what the Fed has done in legislation.
And I know the one thing that I've seen on the unemployment after helping a couple people navigate that system, and one thing that's been passed on us through Missouri Chamber, is make sure that if you are truly filing for unemployment as an employee, that you select that box that says, are you unemployed due to COVID-19? And then there's a little reasoning box that you can state in there. If you're in retail and that has since shut down or that sort of thing, make sure that you include that reasoning if you're filing for true unemployment.
Yeah, that's correct. It's important to read. There's several questions. It's not a one-page application. There's several tabs to fill out, and they need to be filled out completely. And that system is honestly totally overwhelmed at the moment. I heard statistics. They typically have about 4,000 applicants a week. Last week they had 42,000 applicants. And so the system is overwhelmed. Be patient. The money's there. How we get it to the taxpayers is still under some question, but help's coming.
Yes.
And so the next part that we wanted to talk about, and we can take questions at the office on any of this stuff, but there's a part of this Phase 3 bill, this CARES Act, called the Payroll Protection Program. And I want to spend quite a bit of time on that. So, because I think this is going to help a lot of businesses in Chillicothe. If you have employees, it's really, really a good opportunity. So the bottom line with this program is you're supposed to calculate what 1 month's payroll is and then multiply that by 2.5. And what you come up with is a loan value that you apply for through a special program, and this loan is 100% forgivable as long as you meet certain criteria.
Which is amazing. I mean, that is a huge differential for businesses.
Right, and I do not believe this is a catch-22 situation. I believe that the Fed is really trying to give $350 billion to the economy to get it back up and going. So it's really pretty easy to meet the criteria for forgiveness. You spend 75% of the loan proceeds on payroll. You can spend some money on utilities. You can spend some money on rent, but you need to spend 75% of it on payroll in order to have the full forgiveness there. And there's other calculations also for full-time equivalent employees that we're expecting. Some of this stuff is not final. Like Crystal said in the very beginning of this is a day-by-day. Things are changing rapidly. I've talked to several banks and trying to get a handle on what the point of origin is going to require, and they still don't know.
Right.
This loan program goes live on Friday, on April 3rd, for small businesses with employees. Okay, so some of the attachments that Crystal's going to include with this have some detail on dates, and it's a little confusing because the SBA refers to small businesses as small business and proprietorships, and then also subcontractors and self-employed people. Okay, so my best guess, it's an educated guess, I talked to a few bankers about it, but I believe the April 3rd deadline applies to companies with employees, and the April 10th opening of the system applies to self-employed individuals and contractors that do not have employees.
Okay.
So these would be partnerships that don't have employees, and again, contractors, self-employed people without employees should have access to some form of this money. So the calculation to come up with your loan value is pretty straightforward. It's gross wages plus any health insurance that you pay for your employees, and from what I can tell, simple 401k step contributions that the company normally makes. Those three things add together to become what your gross payroll for
Overall
the month is.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you multiply that by 2.5 times. And so it's interesting because the program is designed to go for an 8-week period. And so that 2.5 times, the half is really the extra money for utilities and rent, which are specifically allowed on the application. There's also a checkbox for other. So I'm thinking that if you can get it approved in the front end, there's possibly another expense if it's important to your business that you may be able to get covered by this money for that 2-month period. But you'll have to do that on the application.
Okay. And you correct me, Jeremy, if I'm wrong on this, but one of the things that we learned together as we've been trying to research all of this is that the whole point of this actual payroll protection program is to keep employees being paid during this time, even if they're not working, even if there's not actual work to be done. The whole point of this stimulus when it comes to the employee side of it is keeping people on a payroll so they're not having to go find other work, and then businesses are going to struggle even more on the back end once we are through this by having to start from square one trying to find new employees. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's correct, Crystal. The whole idea was we've got a trained workforce, and we don't want to give up those employees to go do something else because of a short-term issue that we're having. So by backstopping the small businesses and allowing them to keep people on their payroll at little to no cost for a 2-month period is really a huge benefit. And I don't know of any business that hasn't been impacted by COVID-19. So one of the application questions is asked that you can certify is uncertainty or negative impacts from the virus, potentially damaging your business, basically. And I think, in my opinion, there's not a business that's operating today that can't check yes.
No one's untouched. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So to me, any business is going to qualify for this that's been negatively impacted, and I think that's pretty much every business. Mm-hmm. So if you have employees, and also, Crystal, in this bill, they have allowed, if you have laid off your employees, you can bring them back to work and qualify for this payment. I think it's amazing. And what's interesting about that is unemployment has a time clock that an employee qualifies for unemployment. So if you do bring your workforce back and you do pay them payroll for a 2-month period and things still haven't returned to normal, and July 1st, we're still in a bad situation and you have to lay people off again, you've restarted their unemployment clock for them, which I think is a huge benefit to these employees.
That's a win. Yes.
Yeah, it is. And so 6 months of unemployment, you've essentially taken care of your employees from April 3rd to December 31st, which I think, honestly, is the responsible thing to do if you can, if you can do it with some government support.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful win. So the applications and paperwork that Crystal is sending out, that's the latest and greatest that we have. There's going to be more information come out because, like I said, there were 2 dates. There were dates for businesses with employees, and then there's another later date that's the following Friday for businesses without employees. And the regs, the guidance from SBA is not available yet for exactly how the calculation is going to work for those self-employed people that don't have payroll. And I would argue the self-employed people that do have payroll we should be including some of their earnings as part of payroll.
Yes.
But again, that guidance from SBA is not out. The individual I talked to at one of the banks in the SBA department suggested that they think that data is going to be available on Friday, which is unfortunate because Friday is the opening.
Exactly. It's a little
filing
tiny
deadline.
ball, but
Yeah, it's going to be, Friday's going to be crazy. So what we're doing as a firm to support our clients, and quite frankly, anybody that wants our help, we're happy to help.
Yeah.
So even if you're not a client of mine, if you want help with this thing, I'd be more than happy to meet with you and be the agent on the loan for you. But what we're doing is we're trying to gather the information that we think we're going to need, complete an application, have all of our signatures ready, have driver's licenses ready, and have all the appropriate documentation ready to go. And then if they throw a curveball at us later, we'll address, another piece of paperwork here and there as needed. But I think it's important for the businesses to get a partner in this that knows what they're doing, whether it's your local banker, whether it's me, whether it's your CPA. Get a partner in this, because applying for the loan is step one. Getting the money, dispersing it, and
in the correct manner.
That's right. Making sure that when it's time to apply for the loan forgiveness, that you're going to qualify is a really big part of this. And that's 8 to 10 weeks from now. So make sure you have somebody on your team that can help you keep track of all this information, because the value here is pretty extreme. I've talked to many small businesses that, they're going to apply for anywhere from $15,000 to $200,000.
Yes.
For this short period of time, and to get that much payroll covered and then forgiven, it is a huge,
insurmountable. Absolutely. It's a game changer for so many businesses, and not just the super small businesses that might just be a family-owned operation with no employees. I mean, we have some that have 50 employees that are hurting and need the same exact thing. So it is a very invaluable tool that I'm glad our government was able to get together and put into place. Yeah.
And Crystal, time's of the essence. So $350 billion is what's been allocated to this specific program.
Yes.
And that sounds like a lot of money. But I can look around Chillicothe and find about $5 million worth of funding pretty quickly. And I think this money is going to go fast.
Yes.
So I think
hang on.
Application.
This is the joy of working from home, people. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
I got my children to be quiet, but apparently people still want to call my house phone, so I apologize for that. I know one question that I wanted to bring up, Jeremy, that we learned yesterday with this was that with, so many businesses are asking us the questions of, okay, so if I do one program, does that knock me out of running for another program that's being offered, or another loan or forgivable loan or grant? And so some good news that I felt like came out of our conversation yesterday with the state and national level, and that was that if you do the Paycheck Protection Program, you can still receive some other loans if you feel like you need additional money on top of keeping the payroll up. I know one that they specifically said was the disaster loan. That if you felt like you still needed additional money, but that the trick to that, and why Jeremy's words were so important about making sure that you have a professional on your side going through all this with you, and that is that it can't always be used for the same thing. So if you're using the payment or the payroll protection program for payroll, then you cannot use a disaster loan to also be paying payroll. And that's the main thing. And I know there's so many more caveats and everything that go along with that, but that was one important takeaway that I received from yesterday. Do you have anything to add to that, Jeremy?
Yeah, and that's correct. So what we chose to talk about in this call was the payroll protection program, because to me, that's the low-hanging fruit and the most bang for your application dollar, for your time spent. It's a great program, but there are others out there, and it's important for businesses. If you're not employee heavy, if you're equipment heavy, There's another program out there that could be really beneficial for you for operating costs, a low interest loan with a $10,000 forgiveness
Yes.
section in it. And so some of these programs can be used together. Some of them specifically cannot. So, for instance, there's an extension on payroll taxes that's available. Well, if you use the payroll protection program, you're not to use that extension on payroll taxes. That's specifically not allowed. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot of different parts of the legislation. When you have 3 bills that pass inside a week of each other, that creates a lot of confusion. And that's why you need to have a professional that knows what they're talking about to work with your company and see what's best for you. But for most of our people here in Chillicothe, I think the payroll protection program is too sweet of a deal to pass up. And most of our businesses should be applying for that. And like I said, applications start Friday. So if you don't have your payroll, if you don't have your payroll in a position where you can get that together quickly, you may want to work on that. Take a look at the application, get it filled out, and always, if you need my help, I'm more than happy to help.
Wonderful. And I know, as Jeremy mentioned, we'll put all the links in the comments below this video. So make sure that you're accessing those, using those. There's a document that Jeremy referenced that really breaks down a lot of this, the wording of it, and makes it very readable and understandable. So we'll make sure and include that for you as well. And thank you, Jeremy, for offering up your services, Clevenger and Associates, located right on the north end of Chillicothe. So make sure and give them a call. Jeremy, you want to give them your phone number?
Yeah, sure. Phone number is 660-646-4872, and call anytime.
Awesome. And we referenced to the banks. And so a lot of this is going to be filtered through our local banking institutions. We have been speaking with them. Jeremy has, I have as well. And I know that there's 2, if not 3, that are already on board and have agreed to participate in this. So be looking for information coming up on that, because I do think that possibly all of our banks will get involved. They're just waiting, like we are, for additional information to make sure that they're making the best guided decisions. So thank you again, Jeremy, for joining us today. And on behalf of the Chillicothe Chamber, I wish everyone well, stay healthy, and stay in touch, and we'll be back with more information in the coming days.